Hey, hi, hello, how you doing? It's me again, me and you, that is. Just great to have you stop by Larry Live. I appreciate you coming over. I had a very important thing I wanted to talk about this time. It is about the march in Washington, D.C. on Friday, the theme being Love Saves Lives. Over my shoulder, you can see a time-lapse video that I have running here. This is not a loop. This is the actual time-lapse. Let me scoot over here a little bit. You see all these people going by. They are there to make a statement of support for the rights of the unborn, for the children who are on their way into this world, whose lives are in danger because of the threat of abortion. So I have a couple of other videos I want to share with you during the presentation today. And we're going to go back to the debate between Hillary Clinton and President Trump during that debate when this subject came up. So we'll take you there, and then we'll also, it just stopped. You saw that brief moment of pause. That was the end of the video. So it's now looping, but you can see just how many tens of thousands of people there are out there. Let me move over here and let you see them again. Isn't that amazing? These people are here just to let it be known that they care, and that they're there to try to make a difference in the future of our country. It's a beautiful and wonderful thing that they're doing. So I'm going to show you this video of the debate, and then we're going to go back and also get the speech that President Trump, just a portion of it, just some highlights of it, that he gave on Friday to the folks that were there in D.C. for the march. So let's get started, and we'll take a look at how things went in the debate.
You can regulate, if you are doing so, with the life and the health of the mother taken into account.
Mr. Trump, your reaction, and particularly on this issue of late-term partial birth abortion.
I think it's terrible. If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, and Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me.
Thank God for President Trump. Thank God for President Trump. Thank God he won the election. He may have his flaws, he may have his faults, but on this, he is absolutely right. He is absolutely right. I love it when he says, you may say it's okay, someone else may say it's okay, but with me, it's not okay. Thank God for President Trump. Now, I would like to consider what Hillary said in this, and I always notice that when she talks to us, she always points her finger. She makes her points very much emphatic with her fingers. Maybe it's 2 fingers, maybe it's 1, maybe it's a pointed hand. I'm not really sure. I don't pay that close attention, but I just get the feeling I'm being lectured by a cranky old school teacher or something. No, I don't mean to show any disrespect. It's just how it makes me feel. Nobody likes to have people pointing their finger at them. Do you understand? As a matter of fact, let me just take time out for a minute. I have this theory that the reason that Hillary lost the election is because of hand gestures. I'm going to give you a little tip here. If you want to be appealing to people, you don't ever speak to them like this, okay? Now, you remember what I'm telling you, okay? The better way to do it is to say, you know, if you want to be appealing to people, you should never speak to them with your finger in their face. It's the difference. The reason Trump won is because he always would do this. Do you ever notice this about him? When he speaks, his hands are up. I've seen him do it hundreds of times. And with her, it was this. Just a little tip. Maybe you shouldn't pass that on to anybody, especially if they're going to be running for office against Trump next time. So scratch that, okay? Anyway, but let's go back to what she said and forget about her finger pointing for just a minute. She says, you can regulate if you consider the life and the health of the mother. The life and the health of the mother. Very I don't even know how to describe that kind of tone. But I would like to ask Mrs. Clinton if she would please, Mrs. Clinton, would you please think about altering or maybe just adjusting your statement just a slight bit. Maybe include this. You can regulate as long as you consider the life and the health of the baby. Have you thought of this? You can regulate as long as you consider the life and the health of the baby. What about the life of the father? Does the father have anything in any of this? Does a woman become pregnant just on her own? Of course not. So this hard, harsh tone is consistent with the kind of harshness and downright savagery of this whole business of abortion in the first place. No consideration for the baby from Mrs. Clinton or the leftists. No consideration for the baby. None. None. And everybody knows that's wrong.
You come from many backgrounds, many places, but you all come for one beautiful cause: to build a society where life is celebrated, protected, and cherished. The March for Life is a movement born out of love. You love your families, you love your neighbors, you love our nation, and you love every child, born and unborn, because you believe that every life is sacred, that every child is a precious gift from God. In fact, only 12% of Americans support abortion on demand at any time. Under my administration, we will always defend the very first right in the Declaration of Independence, and that is the right to life.
Friday's march was a march for love. Love saves lives. And that love includes love for the mother and for the child and for the father, because it takes all of those elements in this mix of the subject that we're talking about. In fact, this year's theme, Love Saves Lives, is, I think, one of the most honest and maybe most effective ways of branding this concern that has ever been set forth. So I really like it, and I think it represents probably a very honest, accurate way of describing the concern that we have about this important issue. Now, I recognize that this is a complicated and complex subject because it involves basically an unplanned pregnancy. I mean, if a person wants to have a baby and they conceive and the baby's coming, then it's that's not the issue. It's an unplanned or an undesirable pregnancy that takes us down this path. Now, there are two ways to look at an unplanned pregnancy. You can look at it as a curse, or you can look at it as a blessing. First of all, I want to say, and I think you would all agree with me, that no baby is a curse. And if we can agree on that, then we probably turn to the alternative and say the only other option is that a baby is a blessing. It may not be a blessing that you recognize right away, if you hold traditional values and you think that, well, children should only be born in the context of marriage, and you have a pregnancy before you're married, then you may have this conflict of your principles or whatever, and you may say, I would consider, for the sake of public humiliation, maybe I should consider an abortion. Most people who hold traditional values don't carry that out, but there could be circumstances in people's lives, maybe in your life, where sometime in the past you made that decision. And I want to say to you that it's not the unpardonable sin or the unforgivable sin, if there even is such a thing, but it is part of your history. And all of us have come through life in various places in our lives when experiences and situations arose when it was very uncomfortable, and people have had to grow and adapt and change and modify their views on these things, usually through life experiences. What I've found that people that I've encountered over the years are, as you get older and you realize the value and the wonder of a human life, there's really no circumstance in which you could ever feel right about terminating the life of a little baby before it's born. So that's I'm trying to express my compassion to anybody who's gone through this. Basically, what I'm saying here, and it's not that I hold judgment on anyone in this count. That's not the point. That's all in the past, and we're talking about the future. So if you look at it from the moral standpoint, the left constantly seeks to hold high moral ground. Have you noticed this? I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but oftentimes they will appeal to our sense of decency. They will use such terms as fairness, equality, sensitivity, justice, and terms like that. They're very familiar with them. We hear them all the time. The one thing that all of us have in common, that all of us can agree upon, is that life is valuable. But for the leftist, amazingly, the life that we treasure and hold so dear is a negotiable for them. It's a negotiable thing for them. In their view, a living human being on his or her way into this world has no right to life. None. The baby coming into the world, in their view, has no right to arrive safely. No right whatever. The mother can choose to kill it on demand. She can demand that the baby be killed. And that's perfectly okay with the left. Now that is just as wrong as anything could be. And it's amazing to me the passion that the left has for this issue. It has almost become for them a kind of like a sacrament of religion. It seems strange to say it that way. I realize that. But it seems to me that it's almost a religion for them. It's like their sacrament is the sacrament of abortion. It makes me think about the barbarism and the savagery of previous cultures that we've had from ages past. We cringe when we read about those who took babies and threw them into a volcano, or who burned them alive, or who dismembered little children to appease the gods. I wonder what future generations will feel. Will they cringe when they look at this period in American history when millions of little human beings were slaughtered in the name of a religion called choice? To many people, they're going to be shocked at what was going on, because we are living today in this country through a period of barbarism, and there's no other way to put it. Now, this is the same group that tells us that, well, we're supposed to be considerate of everyone. This is the same group that tells us that they care about the poor, they care about the oppressed, they care about the defenseless, the disadvantaged, the victim, the weak, the helpless, those abused by the system. Really. I would say to my friends on the left, we hear you talking much about Black Lives Matter, and Black lives do matter. I would like to add one other category, and that is babies' lives matter. Babies' lives matter too. It's my belief that the most glaring and appalling violation of human rights and of civil rights today is not racial discrimination, no, or discrimination against people who want to immigrate into this country, no. Those are the issues that the left talks about all the time, how unjust and immoral it is for us to have those issues in our culture. But the slaughter of millions of little human beings on their way to earth from heaven, those whose lives were cut short and never allowed to breathe God's fresh air, to see the beauty of the blue sky, or to smell the fresh air after a summer rain. Those little lives that were cut short, you never hear the left lift a finger or say a word in their behalf. To me, that is the most glaring form of inconsistency that you could possibly imagine. When the left talks to us about decency and fairness and justice, it falls on deaf ears with me and with many of us because of their tolerance, and even worse than tolerance, their very encouragement of the slaughter of innocents. And that's what it is. You know, I wish there was a better way to describe this. It's the very subject itself is so reprehensible that it offends my sensibilities to even enter into a conversation about these things. I'd rather talk about something more pleasant. Believe me, I don't like to dwell on these things, but we are faced with this. It's staring us in the face. And so I lend my voice to the millions of other Americans who say it is time to stop the killing. Now, just a few days ago, we honored and once again revered and respected and paid our respects to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., who went to the nation's capital and declared on that day when he gave that great speech, I Have a Dream, when he said, "Let justice flow down like a mighty river." In this speech, he called for justice to be served. Well, I have a dream, and my dream is just as the Berlin Wall fell, although it seemed like all my life when I was growing up that it had always been there in 1961 all the way through. It just seemed like it would never go away, but it did. The day came when it fell. And just as the Holocaust ended and the Nazi regime was defeated and the Allied forces came in and liberated those few who were still surviving in those horrible death camps, and just as Jesus rose from the dead after having been unjustly executed, I believe, and my dream is, that one day this nation will rise up and live up to its promise that life is the most fundamental of all rights. And on that day, we will be free of the slavery of abortion, free of the killing of innocent babies coming into the world, free at last. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.